Imagine Philadelphia, 1736. A young Benjamin Franklin is trying to enter the Pennsylvania legislature. He has a problem. One influential member openly dislikes him and opposes him at every session. This is a serious obstacle to his political career. What does Franklin do? He doesn't try to bribe his opponent, start a fight, or ignore the problem. Instead, he does something brilliant and counterintuitive. He asks his enemy for a favor. Franklin learned that this person had a very rare and valuable book in his library. He wrote a polite letter asking to borrow the book for a few days. The opponent agreed. Franklin returned the book a week later with a thank you note. What happened next? When they met again, the former enemy spoke to Franklin first and was unusually polite. More than that, they became lifelong friends. Franklin later wrote in his autobiography, "He that has once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another than he whom you yourself have obliged." Sounds absurd, right? Logic suggests the opposite. If I do someone a favor, that person should feel grateful to me, not the other way around. But human psychology works differently. What is the Benjamin Franklin effect? The Benjamin Franklin effect is a psychological phenomenon in which a person who has done you a favor begins to like you more than before. The paradox is that it is the helper, not the recipient, who changes their attitude positively. This is the exact opposite of what seems logical. We think, if I want someone to like me, I should do kind things for them. But in reality, if you want someone to start liking you more, ask them to do something for you. Scientific evidence. Of course, one story from the 18th century is not enough. Psychologists have tested this effect in laboratories. Experiment by John J. Jecker and David Landy, 1969. A classic study was conducted at the University of North Carolina. Students were invited to participate in an intellectual quiz with a chance to win money. Participants were divided into 3 groups. Group 1. After the quiz, the researcher personally approached the winners, said the study was funded from his own money, and asked them to return the winnings. This was a personal request. Group 2. The same request was made by a secretary, supposedly on behalf of the psychology department, an institutional request. Group 3. Control group. No one made any request. Then all participants were asked to rate how much they liked the researcher. The results were striking. Participants in the first group, who were asked for a personal favor, rated the researcher significantly higher than the other 2 groups. They found him more likable, interesting, and trustworthy. People who returned the money in response to a personal request liked the researcher more. Modern confirmations. Since then, the effect has been repeatedly reproduced in various settings. Research shows the phenomenon works. In professional relationships, in romantic situations, between strangers, even in online interactions. Why does it work? Cognitive dissonance theory. The key to understanding the Franklin effect lies in Leon Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory, one of the most influential psychological theories of the 20th century. What is cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is the psychological discomfort that arises when a person holds 2 contradictory beliefs, or when their behavior contradicts their beliefs. Our brain hates contradictions. When we detect them, we experience tension and discomfort, and automatically try to resolve it. We want harmony between what we think and what we do. How dissonance explains the Franklin effect. Let's return to Benjamin Franklin's situation. Before the favor, the opponent has a belief, I don't like Franklin, I dislike him. Franklin asks to borrow a book. The person agrees and lends the rare book. Dissonance arises. The opponent's brain faces a contradiction. I don't like this person. Belief. But I just did him a favor, lent him my valuable book. Behavior. This creates psychological tension. The brain asks, why did I help someone I don't like? I'm not an idiot. I don't help people without reason. Resolving dissonance. To eliminate this contradiction, the brain changes the belief. Maybe he's not so bad. Perhaps I was wrong about him. I probably like him more than I thought since I was willing to lend him the book. It is important to understand this happens unconsciously. The person does not logically think, oh, I have dissonance. I need to change my opinion. No, the brain automatically adjusts the attitude to match the behavior. There's another mechanism. We like to think well of ourselves. We want to believe that our actions are reasonable and justified. When we help someone whom we supposedly don't like, we subconsciously look for a justification. Why did I do this? If there is no external reason, no one forced us, no one paid us, we find an internal one. This person must deserve it. He must be a good person. This is called the effect of insufficient justification. When external reasons for behavior are insufficient, we create internal ones, the conditions under which the effect works best. Not every request triggers the Franklin effect. There are important conditions. The request must be personal. Remember the Jecker and Landy experiment? The effect worked only when the request was personal, from the researcher himself. When the secretary asked on behalf of the psychology department, the effect did not appear. Why? Because cognitive dissonance requires a personal connection. When you help an institution, you can justify it with external reasons, rules. That's how it should be. Official request. But when you help a specific person, especially someone you didn't like, the dissonance is stronger. The request must be reasonable and feasible. If the request is too difficult or unreasonable, the person may refuse or agree but feel used. This will not create positive feelings. Franklin asked for a book. Reasonable, feasible, not too burdensome. If he had asked for a huge sum of money, the effect would not have worked. The person must agree voluntarily. If someone was forced or heavily pressured, they can justify their behavior with external pressure. I helped because I was forced. Dissonance will not arise, and the attitude will not change. For the effect, it is critical that the person feels they made the decision themselves. The favor must require at least some effort. If the request is too simple, pass the salt. It does not create enough cognitive tension. There must be at least a bit of effort. Time, resources, energy. The element of choice is important. If a person had no real choice, the effect weakens. The brain can easily justify behavior. I had no options. But when there is a choice and the person chooses to help, dissonance is maximal. Practical application in life. In professional settings, situation, a colleague is cold or even hostile toward you. What not to do? Avoid them, complain, try to win them over with generous gestures from your side. What to do? Ask for a small favor, preferably related to their expertise. I know you're great with Excel. Could you show me how to make this complex formula? Or, you have great presentation skills. Could you take a look at my slide? This not only solves your task, but also triggers the Franklin effect. In personal relationships. Situation, you want to get closer to a new acquaintance or someone you were romantically interested in. Classic approach, I need to impress them, show myself, do something nice. Franklin approach, ask for advice, help, or a small favor. You're from the city? Could you recommend a good coffee shop? Or, I know you've read this book. What did you think of it? People love to help. It makes them feel important and needed. And after helping, they begin to feel warmer toward you. In conflict situations, you have a conflict with a neighbor, relative, or business partner. Instinctive reaction, distance, coldness, revenge. Franklin's strategy. After emotions cool down, ask for a small favor. This can be a signal of reconciliation and, paradoxically, improve the relationship. In sales and negotiations, good salespeople know this. If you want the client to feel connected to you, don't only give them something, ask them for something too. Could you give me feedback on this proposal? Or may I know your opinion on our new product? A client who has invested time and effort will subconsciously justify it by believing that you and your product are worth it. Important warnings and ethical considerations. This is not manipulation if it is sincere. The Franklin effect is not a dark psychological trick. The difference lies in intention and sincerity. Manipulation. You deliberately use a person without caring about them, exploiting a psychological mechanism. Sincere application. You truly value the help, are grateful for it, and want to build a real relationship. Franklin genuinely wanted to read that book. He was sincerely grateful. The effect was a side, though desirable, result. Don't abuse it. If you constantly ask for favors and give nothing in return, people will feel used. The Franklin effect works for starting a relationship or overcoming a barrier, but afterward there must be reciprocity. Respect refusal. If a person refuses to help, respect it. Pressure destroys the effect and ruins the relationship completely. Related psychological phenomena. The IKEA effect. People value more what they have invested their own effort into. IKEA furniture that you assembled yourself seems better and more valuable to you than the same item already assembled. The mechanism is the same. We justify our effort by believing that the object of our effort was valuable. Stockholm syndrome in a mild form. Hostages sometimes begin to sympathize with their captors. One of the factors is that when the captor does small favors, gives food, water, the victim may begin to justify their actions. This is an extreme and pathological case, but the mechanism is similar. We tend to explain others' actions toward us in a positive way when they confuse us. Foot in the door technique, a related influence technique. If a person agreed to a small request, they are more likely to agree to a larger one later. Why? Cognitive consistency. I already helped once, which means I'm someone who helps. I must continue to behave consistently. Limitations of the effect does not work with strong hostility. If a person actively hates you, has serious reasons for dislike, or is in acute conflict with you, the request may be perceived as audacity and worsen the situation. The Franklin effect works better with mild coldness, indifference, or superficial dislike, not with deep hostility. Cultural differences. In some cultures, a request for a personal favor may be perceived differently. In individualistic Western cultures, it is normal, but in some collectivist cultures, requests are regulated by other rules. It does not replace real communication. The effect can open the door, but it will not build the relationship for you. It is a tool for beginning, not a substitute for genuine interest, care, and reciprocity. Conclusion: the wisdom of the paradox. The Benjamin Franklin effect is a reminder of how illogical and surprising human psychology is. We are not rational beings who make decisions based on facts. We are beings who rationalize our actions after the fact. Our brain is constantly working to create internal consistency, a coherent story about who we are and why we do what we do. And in this process, our actions shape our beliefs, no less than beliefs shape actions. Franklin intuitively understood what psychologists proved centuries later. If you want to change someone, Aug's attitude toward you, sometimes the best way is not to impress them with your virtues, but to give them an opportunity to show theirs. When we help someone, we inadvertently become investors in that person. And like any investor, we want to believe we made the right choice. Therefore, we begin to see the object of our investment in a better light. This is not a weakness. It is a feature of how we create social bonds, build trust, and find meaning in relationships. In the end, perhaps one of the best ways to love someone is to find a reason to be kind to them. And there's deep beauty in this. We become closer, not only by receiving, but also by giving.